This program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with Eau Claire County. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
I'm going to start. Okay. I call to order this regular meeting of the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors on this Wednesday, November the 7th. Members, before you rise, tonight's meeting will be broadcast on Valley Media Works Charter Channel 994 on Thursday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. following the meeting, WFRP LP 101.9 FM, and online at Valley Media Works. Members, please rise for presentation of the flag by Sergeant Raphael of the United States Marine Corps. Followed by the singing of the national anthem by Allie Warren from North High School.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Is that an introduction? Please be seated. Okay. We have two speakers this evening. First is Judith Ohm, World War II historian.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Judy Ohm. I lived most of my life in Eau Claire. For the past 15 years, I've been in Mondovi, Wisconsin. I also am an author. I've written a book, Turret Tales. It's about my friend Doug Ward, who was in World War II. I'm not here to sell my book, but a little bit about Doug. He was a ball turret gunner on a B-17, and the lifespan of a ball turret gunner was usually 3 missions. Well, Doug did 37 missions in the European theater. And after he was through with the war, he came back to Mondovi and was the first mail carrier there. Now, it's so important that there is a place for people to be able to go to. It's like this story here. This is just one person's story. But if you can go to a place, future generations will be able to go, sit down, reflect, meditate, and have a real peaceful area. I just drove by there this week also, and it's a gorgeous spot along the river. So I'm hoping that that project is going to come to be. Thank you all, and God bless you all.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ron Martin, the Patriot Council President.
I'm not Ron
Yeah, I
Martin.
noticed that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Ron Martin is the Patriotic Council president, and I'm the vice president. Ron is caught in Madison and has something going on. So I was emailed his speech. So if you'll give me a chance to read it for you. And he and I believe in this together. We support both the Patriotic Council does the Memorial Day parade and weekend, and we also do Veterans Day celebration. The Eau Claire Board thanks you for the opportunity to come to this evening in support of the County Veterans Tribute. My name is Ron Martin and Kay Olson. I live here in Eau Claire, which we both do. He is a social studies teacher in the Eau Claire School District and is currently serving as a chair of the Eau Claire Patriot Council. The council is responsible for both the Veterans Day program and the Memorial Day program. He is also the son of veterans, both his parents, and they were in the U.S. Navy. I am a veteran. I did 26 years in the Army. My son was a Marine. Andy did 9 years, and he was killed in Iraq. So that makes me then a Gold Star mom. If you lose a son or daughter in the military, then you're a Gold Star mom. It is quite an opportunity for us both to be importantly in a moral obligation on our part to honor those who answer the call. It is fitting and right that we pay homage to those who no longer are with us, and we leave a lasting mark of their dedication and sacrifice they made to preserve a more perfect union and to fight tyranny and fascism. A moment, in my opinion, is long overdue for the Eau Claire Tribute. I have traveled to many places during both here in the States and out of state. One of my favorite places to visit is Washington, D.C. Of course, being a social study teacher, he is a history geek, and Washington, D.C. is like going to heaven as far as he's concerned. In all seriousness, I find myself drawn to the Korean War Memorial. It is a powerful reminder of the men and women who answer the call of duty to help protect and defend democracy in Korea. If you have ever been to that monument or others, it holds a powerful hold on you while you're there, and you think about it a lot when you're gone, as you travel home. It is not only the images inscribed on the wall, but within the wall triangle are 19 stainless steel statues. Each are larger than life size, 7 feet 3 inches to 7 feet 6 inches. Each weighs nearly 1,000 pounds. The figure represents a platoon on patrol drawn from the branches of all armed forces. 14 figures are from the U.S. Army, 3 are from the Marine Corps, 1 Navy corpsman, and 1 Air Force forward observer. They are dressed in full combat gear dispersed among strips of granite and juniper bushes, which represents the rugged terrain of Korea. There is a lasting impact with this monument, which holds me and millions of others who have been there to pay homage to the men and women who have served during their time of conflict. Where is our monument for Eau Claire? Many cities and counties throughout our state have an impressive memorial and monuments erected to the honor of our great heroes of our communities. I am strongly encourage the Eau Claire Council Board to invest in a lasting tribute to our brave men and women of our country and our county. It is the right thing to do. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Before we conclude this portion, the celebration of the Veterans Day, I want to acknowledge the flags provided by the Boy Scout Troop 36, who I think are seated in the back here. Thank you very much. Next is our moment of reflection, and this is going to be a video given to us by Supervisor Lavelle, who is going to address that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bet you wonder why I'm doing a moment of reflection. It's the first time in 33 years that I've done it, so I'm kind of new at it. But it's a story about a combat veteran that went on a tour of duty and made it back, and he had a little story to tell. And in the video, it shows all the wars and conflicts that we've been through since George Washington crossed into Delaware. So I think it'll be interesting for you people, and I hope Janet can bring it up because if she doesn't, I'm going to have to sing, and I don't, I don't think you people are going to want to do that.
I think that might be out of order.
We had it ready to go, but.
Yeah, someone shut it, so I just got to bring it back up, sorry.
But I can give you a thing, is what is a veteran, question mark? A veteran, whether active duty, discharged, retired, or reserves, is someone at one point in their life made a check payable to the United States of America with an amount up to and including their life. So, something to think about. So you got it, Janet?
I think so, if everything goes here.
Back up.
Just a second, now the music isn't going the way it's supposed to. Oh, okay, thank you.
One of these Boy Scouts could
I'll switch
probably
it,
run
yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's right, I probably need a 10-year-old.
I'm going to already sing.
Thank you, Supervisor Lavelle. The next item on our agenda is the call of the roll. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and indicate your presence. We have 29 members present. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is approval of the Journal of Proceedings of October the 16th, 2018. Supervisor Bates.
I would move approval.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second by Supervisor Henning. Any discussion, corrections? Okay. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by nay. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is public comment. This is the period of time when the public is invited to present comment up to 3 minutes. We have We have 2 persons presenting tonight. First is Richard Freitag. You come forward. And I'll ask Liz Spencer to be over here ready to give the next comment.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I'm the immediate past commander of VFW Post 305. I'm a Vietnam War veteran. I just would like to say this concerning the upcoming Veterans Memorial Project. Whether we were drafted or whether we were enlisted, whether we came home alive or whether we made the plaques outside the entrance to this building, we who served felt it was the right thing to do. We are all here tonight, and there are a lot of veterans here present, to ask for your help on this project because we feel it's the right thing for you to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Liz Spencer.
Hi there. My name is Liz Spencer. I live in the city of Eau Claire. I'm speaking as a concerned citizen about the proposed Veterans Memorial described in Volume 1. The article sounded if a decision had already been made that this was a done deal to fund almost $500,000 of tax levy for the memorial. I completed the online survey for Eau Claire County asking residents to prioritize various services by the county, but I don't remember being asked about this particular one. To me, it is not a priority at this time. For the record, I'm not a veteran, but my husband served for 3 years in Korea, and I was privileged to live with him there during that time. It was also a time of kind of scary time when the Army was instructed to shoot on sight anyone who was on the streets during the curfew from midnight to 4 a.m., as this was a time when North Koreans would try to infiltrate. It was an interesting time, I have to say. But please understand, though, that I have the utmost sympathy and respect for our veterans who've served us and sacrificed much, including their lives. But I feel we should devote our limited resources to the living. Veterans still among us who have suffered much and carry both the physical and mental wounds from their service. Our limited resources need to support the living to help them lead healthy and productive lives. Also, due to state-imposed limits on tax levy, giving almost $500,000 to a Veterans Memorial at this time means there will be a loss for other programs. Some of these programs will provide government services for living veterans, and others are basic essential county government services such as corrections, the jail, the health department, corrections, and so on. Human Services would be included in that as well. And the biggest of all would be roads and money to keep the courthouse functioning and the lights on. So there are a lot of unanswered questions about this project. The first time that I'm aware of that the public knew of it was the article, very brief article in Volume 1. Has there been a public hearing to give almost $500,000 from our very limited and stressed budget to such a project at this time? Would not another time be better? Too many unanswered questions as well. Has the City Council approved the use of the land that's being proposed? Who will maintain this park? Does it fit into the county's strategic plan to use nearly $500,000 for this in this time of limited budgets? What other county essential services will sacrifice to fund this? Or will the money be borrowed and that it would increase our debt interest? What notice to the public, and has there been a public hearing on this project, would be my question. For these reasons, I would urge you at this time, not necessarily later, it might be taken up again later, but at this time, to take this nearly $500,000 and reallocate it to other essential services, including needed services for wounded veterans, wounded who have chronic disabilities now, either mental or physical, to provide them the services that they need during their lives. So let's give this money to the living and save the memorial for another time when budgets are a little more lucrative. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I hope you'll consider what I have to say.
Thank you. This concludes our public comment period. Oh, sorry. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Please come forward and give us your name and your address.
Hello, my name is Pa Tao, and my address is 3203 Oakland Street in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So I'm here today to really bring, I just heard about the resolution to support the Memorial Veteran last night, and was quite surprised because as a citizen of Eau Claire, I haven't heard of the project until last night. And the amount of money that's going to be giving towards the project is, it's a lot of money. And I feel like right now we have a lot of issues within the county that should be considered. Some of the things that we really should be paying attention on is the home affordable housing within the city and the county, both for veterans and also for families. And so I feel like the money can be used in a way that, or reallocated in a way that will support families better. And just so you know, I do have families of veterans. I'm not against veterans. I'm not against a memorial, any of that. But I just think that right now there's so many other issues in our community that we need to take care of. And a memorial is, not, it just doesn't seem like the right time to do that. I'm also asking the county board to also consider a public hearing about this issue because no one has heard about it before. And I think that will give really good input for the county board as they make decisions on whether to approve or not approve the money for this memorial. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Mr. Zine?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and County Board members. Dave Zine, 1716 63rd Street, Eau Claire. Wasn't planning to speak, but after some of the comments and testimony, I think perhaps you should realize the true dimension of this project. This project is very, very important. As you know, there's perhaps nothing else like this in Eau Claire County. Eau Claire County has perhaps been negligent in honoring and serving those who have suffered and sacrificed in war. For those of us that have done that, the sight, sounds, and stench of war is as real as of only yesterday. I mean, we can't forget. A lot of these people here have dedicated their lives, their souls, to serving other veterans. A lot of us are honoring somebody else here, and there's a lot of people here that should be honored. That's the home front heroes. Those are the individuals that never served in the military, never served in war. Those are the individuals that love this country from the bottom of their heart and the essence of their soul with every fiber of their existence, just like the veterans. And this project's been spearheaded by a non-veteran. I mean, a veteran who just loves this country, as many of you, as all of you. And I mean, it's ironic that the 100th anniversary of World War I is coming, and those pictures were startling. Oh, wow. Thank you. There was a number of people back here with tears in their eyes. One person was almost crying, just in those pictures. I mean, if this project that you're talking about, I don't have my stopwatch, this project you're talking about, I mean, this is going to be a tourist attraction. It's going to be economic development. It's going to bring people, conventions of all types, Elks, Eagles, veterans organizations to this area. Lodging, meals, gas, food, restaurants are going to flourish. Eau Claire could be the bright shining star, the magnet, along with the High Ground Veterans Memorial Park, which could have been a national monument, 12 years ago, a national park. The United States Park Service said that if that would have been a national park, that would have been 10 times the visitors 12 years ago. It would have been 20 times. I mean, what you have is a Wisconsin Veterans Tribute. You got the High Ground and Eau Claire. Where do you stay? Where's the lodging? Eau Claire, Eau Claire, Eau Claire. Chippewa Falls, maybe. But bottom line is, please approve this project and talk to these eye-to-eye, heart-to-heart, soul-to-soul, some of these veterans that are representing hundreds that are not here, and future generations which could feel the spiritual essence which connects all of us with all those that have ever lived, loved, uttered, and cherished freedom. This project is much more than just, and we don't like the, I've got to back up, we don't like the word memorial. That means the dead. We're talking about a tribute, the living. And long after we're gone, we're going to be living, our souls, our spirits. So thank you, members and chairman. This is just a wonderful project, and I can't shave or cut my hair until I do my next movie, if you're wondering why. And yes, Colleen, you can have a ride pretty soon on my motorcycle. God bless each and every one of you, and please consider this project and talk to these individual veterans. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Excuse me. I see no one else. I'm sorry, I do see someone else. Would you come forward, please? And give us your name and your address, please.
My name is Pat Moore. I hadn't planned on saying a word here tonight, but when that young lady sang the national anthem here so wonderfully, and I saw a lot of you that couldn't even exert yourself enough to put your hand over your heart. Shame on you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Our public comment period is now at an end. The sixth item on our agenda is reports to the county board, and you have only a written report on the contingency fund. I see no indication of someone wishing to speak to that. Item number 7 is presentation of petitions, claims, and communications. We have received communication from Representative Warren Petrick on the child support funding increase, which I believe is in the packet, right? And also a rezoning request from an owner, Mattoon Rentals LLC, which will go on to a future agenda. The next item on our agenda is in item number 8, first reading of ordinances by committees. These two items actually belong under item 10. So without objection, I am moving them down there, and we will take them up when we come to item 10. The next item is item number 9, first reading of ordinances and resolutions by members, file number 83.
Creating the special,
Sorry.
creating the special committee on ag ordinance review consisting of 16 members and 2 alternates for the period of up to 6 months.
This is listed under first reading of ordinances. If we wish to take this up this evening, I invite a member to make a motion to suspend the rules. Sorry, I can't see. Bad glasses. Supervisor Dunning.
I move to suspend the rules.
Thank you. That motion requires a second. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Stelzis. All those in favor of suspending the rules, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. The rules are suspended and we may proceed to...
He said 2/3.
Oh, thank you. I'm reminded that suspension of the rules requires a 2/3 vote. It's hard to determine that on a voice vote. So please take your keypads in hand and indicate your decision. It is unanimous, 29. Thank you. So we will proceed to the discussion of the ordinance. I believe we should make it first as a motion, eh? Yes. Motion, Supervisor Leary. Second by Supervisor Bates. Okay. Let's see, Supervisor Leary, since you are the maker of the motion, would you like to address it first? Oh, sorry. Sorry, half asleep up here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm very pleased to speak upon this motion. I think it's very important that we get this special committee up and running, and so I would appreciate your support. Perhaps Supervisor Gibson, as chair of P&D, would have some other words.
Thank you. Supervisor Gibson, do you wish to address this?
Yeah, I guess with the terms that are on this, we need to get moving on this as soon as possible and start having these meetings. So, I would highly ask for everybody to approve this.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Supervisor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're on. You should be on.
When I first came onto the board a while ago, there were a number of individuals.
Excuse me, Supervisor Bates, there's something wrong with the mic system.
Push your button and...
Is it working now?
Now it's
Yes,
working.
it is. Thank you. When I first came onto the board quite some time ago, the board had a lot of individuals that came out of agriculture on it. And we came to issues that really involved that segment of our society. There was a strong voice to talk about the concerns that they may have had when we made decisions concerning them. We really don't have that voice now. We have a lot of representation from individuals of various segments, but we really don't have a lot of people out of agriculture. So I would urge the board to support the establishment of this group. And I could think of so many times that their particular voice would have been important to us, whether it was when we were talking about having the larger CAFO projects, or a lot of other things over the last couple of years. So I would urge the board to support the establishment of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Excuse me. Supervisor Knight.
Am I on now?
You are on.
Okay. Is this a question first? Is this an ad hoc group just for this specific
This would be, excuse me, this would be a special committee, and by the county board rules, a special committee requires the action that we're taking tonight.
Okay. Okay.
Was that an answer to your question?
Yeah, close enough.
Okay.
Just looking at the diverse backgrounds of the group, I think it's a great group, and I support them getting going because they only have 6 months to get things done. So,
Just to clarify further, the actual appointment of the members will be done at the end of this meeting tonight.
Oh, okay.
What we're doing is approving the committee as a special committee, and the chair would have the authority to appoint, and then the board approves.
Okay. Well, anyways, I support the current lineup
Thank
for what
you.
it's worth.
Anyone else who wishes to speak? I see no one else wishing to speak. Please take your keypads in hand and indicate your decision regarding file number 79. 83, sorry. That is 29 votes for. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda, I believe we'll take up the files 69 and 71 now, beginning with 69.
Amending the 1982 official zoning district boundary map for the town of Washington.
Thank you. According to the county board rules, it is not necessary to do a suspension of the rules. We're authorized to go ahead. So I will ask for a motion on it. Motion by Supervisor Beckfield, second by Supervisor Lavelle. Supervisor Gibson, would you speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a request that came to Planning and Development to rezone 11.6 acres of land from the Rural Homes District back to A2 Agriculture District to allow a hobby farm and to keep animals on the property, which under the RH Rural Homes zoning isn't permitted. The town of Washington met on this and they recommended and voted for approval. It was recommended by Planning and Development that we approve this, and through Planning and Development Committee, we have voted to approve this. So I would ask for everybody's okay on this.
Thank you. Supervisor DeLuca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is in regards to the information in the packet. I only received 2 pages, no diagrams, so I can see what the land use looks like, the topography, which normally comes with our other packages. So I was wondering, did I miss something in my packet, or?
No, I'm sorry. You didn't miss anything in your packet. The resolution has to do with the appointment of a committee. The substance of what they deal with.
We're talking about.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, because usually we get, what land, what soils are there and so forth, and that is not in my packet. I guess at this time, I don't know enough information that I would support the vote. Thanks.
Okay, Supervisor Gibbs, sorry. Okay. I'm informed that Matt Michaels is here and could address your question. And here he comes. Without objection, Mr. Michaels. Thank you for coming.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Smyer, members of the board. So to your question, this is downzoning the property. There should be, I thought in the packet, an aerial photo. Okay. The property has 1 home, 1 barn, and the rest is pasture. And as to the land use, that is it. They're currently entitled to to split that property into 1-acre lots. They wish to downzone it to keep, I believe, 2 horses and a couple of small goats. So essentially, they are giving up their land use rights to gain the entitlement to have some animals. So, and as far as the soils, because it's not a farmland preservation area, that would not be an evaluative criteria for rezoning in this area, so we would not have a soils map in this case.
Would you remain here just for a moment?
Absolutely.
Supervisor Stout.
Speaker not working.
Sorry?
Why is his microphone not working?
I think it's working, but he's a tall person. Yeah.
Can you just speak into it to see?
Yeah, testing. Is that good?
I think.
All right.
Can you just,
Okay.
I mean, it's on like it was for everybody else. Nothing's changed. It is directional.
Can you hear it when he leans into the microphone?
Yeah, can you just speak?
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Tall person.
I have no idea what he said to begin with.
I'll make the request, but I'm going to ask that the audience not participate. This is a meeting of the county board. Go ahead, Matt. By request, would you repeat what you said?
Repeat what I just said? Okay. So this rezoning request is to go from the rural homes 1 acre minimum lot size to the A2 agricultural residential 5 acre minimum lot size, sometimes called hobby farm, which is what this applicant wishes to do. It's a tad unusual in that they're actually downzoning their property. They're not asking for more intensity. They're asking for actually slightly less for the purpose of keeping animals. As Member Gibson mentioned, that's been through, this is basically the third hearing. They've been to the town of Washington to evaluate this. They went to the County Planning and Development, and they're here, well, we're here tonight to present it to the entire county board. So this is the third hearing on this matter.
Stay here, Matt. Supervisor Stelch, is this a question for Mr. Michaels or?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Yeah, I along with Supervisor DeLuca, I was kind of missing the map. Could you first just describe about where this is located without having to go look up on the section maps, like some road
absolutely.
names or
I
something?
think probably most folks in this room know where this is. This was proposed to be subdivided into a subdivision by C&M Homes last year. It was featured on the front page of the Leader Telegram newspaper as a subdivision proposal, which, as you know, is withdrawn. So this is on the corner, basically Priory Road as it goes north and south. So it's approximately 1 mile south as the crow flies from I-94 on the very kind of western edge of, northwestern edge of the town of Washington, near the town of Brunswick. So that land and the land adjacent to it was proposed to be a subdivision last year. These folks, there was an existing home that Mike Boley owned, a newer home, and some folks purchased that, I believe, last year. Approached us as to what they would need to do to keep the animals. We told them that a rezoning would be entailed. As we do with all rezonings, we review that for consistency with the comprehensive plan. And just the context of the area, is the land use appropriate for that area? There are other hobby farm, well, there's row crops to the east, there's single family homes to the north, there's another hobby farm to the south, and there's vacant pasture to the west. So our recommendation was for approval, and that's what we have carried forward
Okay,
tonight.
so just a follow-up question then, but just because this is, I guess, somewhat similar to my own personal situation, but why wouldn't a conditional use permit be used in lieu of changing the zoning?
Excellent question. Actually, in the rural homes district, the keeping of animals is not allowed in that manner, so there is no conditional use permit that would be permitted in the RH.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Pagonis.
My question was answered.
Thank you. Any other comment? Any other discussion? Thank you, Mr. Michaels. Oh, sorry.
Was she mine?
Sorry, I
Okay.
can't see it. You're on.
So I assume there are no objections by the neighbors?
No, we have not heard anything from any of the neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, discussion? Thank you, Mr. Michaels. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 69. There we go. Supervisor Coffey? That is 29 yes. The motion passes. Thank you very much. The next file is file 71.
Amending the 1980,
Oh, sorry.
amending the 1982 official zoning district boundary map for the town of Seymour.
Motion by Supervisor Gatlin, second by Supervisor Henning. Supervisor Gatlin, do you wish to address this, or should we give it to Mr. Gibson? Mr. Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This request was to rezone 5.7 acres of land from A2 agriculture district to C3 highway business to develop the RV sales, service, and storage business, and 1.75 acres from A2 to RH to divide the existing residence and the pole building from the property. This was considered by the Seymour Town Board, and they recommended approval. It was reviewed by Planning and Development and then brought forward to the Planning and Development Committee, and the Planning and Development Committee recommended approval, and I would ask for the same.
Thank you. Supervisor DeLuca.
Sorry, but again, I don't have enough information. I don't believe in this in this packet. I would make a motion to.
Excuse me, it's not necessary to make a motion.
Okay.
Would you like to repeat the information coming from Mr. Michaels?
I'd like to delay the vote on this until I have a chance
I'm sorry.
to see the actual documents.
So you're making a motion to?
To delay until the next meeting.
That would be a motion to postpone to the meeting of November 20th.
All right, thank you.
A motion has been made to postpone to November 20th consideration of this item. Is there a second? I see no second. The motion dies for lack of a second. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay. Supervisor Gibson.
Yeah, I would just like to, as a reminder to everybody, because probably not everybody on the board floor understands all the codes and the zoning and what's required by code. That is gone over by the townships, which have rule actually over the county. So as long as everything is reviewed and recommendations that come to the Planning Development Committee from the Planning Development Office that studies all these, and then we refer back to how the township feels on this to review everything, and we look at their plans and compare them to the county's plans and make sure that everything matches up with county code, and then that's what we review as our Planning and Development Committee and make these recommendations.
Thank you. I see no one else who wishes to discuss or ask a question. So supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file number 71. There you go. Supervisor Knight? That is 28 yes and 1 no. The motion passes. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is file number 79.
Authorizing a donation of $450,000 to the Eau Claire Veterans Foundation for the Eau Claire County Veterans Honor Mall.
Motion by Supervisor Wilkie, second by Supervisor Gibson. Supervisor Bates, reporting for the Committee on Administration.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Am I on?
You're on. You're always on, but you're on especially now.
Thank you so much. The Committee on Administration met just prior to this meeting, and this is not an unknown project to us. One of our own, Mark Beckfield, has been involved in the community with this project for a very long period of time, and has found a very responsive community in many respects. So here has come out of this effort through the foundation and through other community members, a collaboration which has consisted of the city, which is donating the land, and more importantly, donating the maintenance on the land in perpetuity. So it isn't just that they're giving the land, they're agreeing to take care of it forever. Along with that, the City of Altoona, in a number of nonprofit organizations, including the Lions, the VFW, the Veterans Service Organization, and innumerable community members have been a part of putting together a package to make this happen. The one thing that we have found out from a lot of projects that we've taken on over the years is that there is very little that we can't accomplish together. The amount of money being asked for here has been approved and in the budget by the Finance Committee already. And part of it is in the 2019 budget, $225,000, and part of it is in the 2020 budget. There's ongoing effort not just to continue towards their $2 million goal from other organizations as well. And they have, I believe, accumulated about $400,000 altogether, but that's been committed to this project. And I don't believe that includes the land. So basically, they're well on their way. Now, the one thing we have found, certainly, is projects like this not only improve our riverfront, allow for a much more beautiful approach to our city, but also enhance the neighborhood and increase economic development and property values in the neighborhood itself. So even though this seems as though it's a lot of money, I heard that same argument when we got working on the confluence. And would anybody like to compare what's happening in downtown Eau Claire now as opposed to 10 years ago because of the investment we made there? So again, I look at this as a collaborative effort that certainly not only is showing what we think as a community, but also what we believe in the establishment of the military in our country and the support for it. And I don't mean support necessarily other than just making a tribute to them. I doubt that there are very few people on this board who haven't had someone in the military. And many of us have lost family members because of that. This is a small price to pay to remind all of us of that tribute. So I urge your support for this particular project. I think the money is there. I think it will enhance our community, and I think it's a long-awaited, deserved tribute to those who serve.
Thank you, Supervisor Bates. Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Supervisor Beckfield came to Finance and Budget very appropriately, presented us with material, I think some of which you have on your desks tonight, and he requested $450,000. The committee reviewed it, and we agreed, as Supervisor Bates stated, to split it up into two portions so that it would be $225,000 in 2019 and second $225,000 in 2020. It will be. Just to correct some of the comments that have been made, it's not actual tax levy, it's not operational, it'll be coming out of capital. So it's not as though we are diverting any dollars from our programs to this project. This project is a capital project. We don't have the flexibility to take capital funds and move them back into operations. So that's not an option. It would be through bonding. With regard to our limited and stressed budget, yes, we have a limited and stressed budget, but we have succeeded in maintaining all of our programming coming up, and you'll hear this at the next meeting, but we have been maintaining all of our programming, and so we don't feel that this $225,000 that is being allocated to the Veterans Memorial is reducing any program that we have ongoing. So we would not be allocating it to other services. So I also would encourage everyone to support this, and you'll have a second kick at this when we approve the budget. But as far as supporting this resolution, I think it's a great idea, and I think that we should, if you have an opportunity to read the material that Supervisor Beckfield handed out.
Thank you, Supervisor Bergona. Supervisor Beckfield.
Thank you. First off, I want to thank the veterans who are here tonight to show support. It is Veterans Family Month, as we all know, and it's Veterans Day this weekend. And how appropriate it would be that we would pass it at such a time. Some questions were brought, you may have a little later, but Jeff Pippinger from the City of Eau Claire is in the back of the room. He represents the parks for the City of Eau Claire. If there are questions, we can ask the chair if we can recognize him at that time. I'd like to say that this project started 4 years ago, and for you veterans or you non-veteran supervisors, this started after an occurrence that we had at the public schools where our veterans were not allowed to do their services at one of our high schools, and they had to move to the Burger King that day to do a 21-gun salute. And after that happened, we decided that we needed to take some action. So a committee was formed, and we went to the Veterans Council, which you saw the president, vice chair here tonight. And they said, here's really what we're about. And I said, H, E, and R, to honor the flag and our country, educate our youth, which is why they go to the schools in the first place, and remember those who served and are serving today. Those were the three things that they brought, that I took out of that meeting back in 2014, many meetings ago with the city and the county. So going through that, and I don't want to go through all the history of it, but this park will be beautiful. It is about the people, not the weapons. We're not looking at putting tanks and aircraft and those type of things in the park. It's going to be about people. And one of the things to educate the youth is it's a timeline. It's a straight line. If you saw that picture of the trees on each side of the park, it's 1,600 feet of straight line with the answer to the cherry tree from Washington, D.C. being the Wisconsin crabapple, which will bloom each spring. We've been working closely with the neighborhood association. We've been working very closely with city planning. The actual cost of this area that we're talking about came in at $638,000 estimated this year, to which the foundation said it would raise the additional $200,000 and not ask for additional money. We got a little bit of a surprise. You know, if you ever built a house, that happens. But that came up. The other thing is to educate. We see the location is ideal. It's an underutilized property. It's actually a high crime area, believe it or not. And it will solve a lot of the city's issues and the county's issues of some drug issues that happen along those riverbanks. So that's one of the benefits of it. The other is the educational. Lots of places to park. You're going to be able to pull a bus of kids up there. And how many kids today have one of these, everybody? And the idea is to make the park interactive. Not a lot of signs, not a lot of things, but you'll be able to walk up with your GPS. You'll go over to one of those stones and you'll be able to click on it, see a picture of that veteran. And if they choose, they can learn more about that person. So that they're going to learn about what happens. There's Gold Star Mothers will have a site, the Gold Star family. There will actually be a proposed site for retiring flags where they're properly cut apart and burned, and different organizations will come down to the park and take care of that every month so everyone learns how to properly get rid of an American flag. And so, not just put it in a bag and throw it in the garbage. But by the way, do you know how many of those flags we get here in these depository boxes? It's unbelievable. And so this will educate our youth with this and so many other ways. And by the way, these aren't my ideas. There's a large committee of people who've worked on this for 4 years to get this pulled together. One other thing I want to talk about, the monies. All the legal fees, all the architectural and engineering has been donated so far. That's not in the $400,000 in cash that has been raised. So if you take that, and we need 1.2, 1.3 million to get this first phase of the project done, we're damn near there. And we've only been raising for a few months because we just got the authorization from the 501(c). Got that right, I think. I don't want to dwell on the whole thing, but it went through Committee on Administration and the Finance Committee unanimously. And again, I apologize to those newer members that really haven't had the opportunity to understand where this is going, but there's been delays in getting this done. 4 years of delays. FEMA, we had to go through FEMA because it's a floodplain down there. Had to jump through those hoops. And Tammy Schlafnagel, I've gotten to know her really, really well because this is in her district. And I hope to hear from her a little bit tonight. But let me tell you, how many emails did I have against this project or slow down? 1. How many in the last year have I had on the veterans? Hundreds supporting this project. It's time to get this done. And it's time to put this ugliness behind us and thank our veterans from Eau Claire County tonight. Okay? That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Supervisor Beckfield. Supervisor Wilkie.
Some of what's said, and I apologize if I all of a sudden stop because I lost my voice, or the chair can gavel me if I go too long, which he will. Supervisor Pagone has covered the things that I wanted to cover from budget and finance, and Supervisor Beckfield did an excellent job of explaining the project. First of all, I would just want to publicly acknowledge and express our appreciation to Supervisor Beckfield's hard work on this for a long, long time. This is something that should have happened a long time ago. I've had the opportunity to walk through other memorial tributes, parks in much smaller counties, and they were very moving and but uplifting at the same time. But when I always left, I had a degree of sadness of, where's Eau Claire County fit in this picture? Zippo. That always bothered me. Now, I was not one that was eager to enlist in the service, and I also was pretty darn lucky with the lottery. Some of you young folks won't know about the lottery during the Vietnam era, but it was literally a lottery. Your birthday date was pulled out. I was fortunate from my point of view at that time that I got a high number, which meant I didn't end up getting drafted. And I got to go to Eau Claire University, Eau Claire U, instead of Rice Paddy U. There was always a bothersome with me, a happiness that I didn't go, but also a guilt, a sadness that there were my classmates from high school over there, some of them dying, some of them coming back with a lot of difficulties that they were going to face. And what even bothered me more was that when they came back, they weren't welcome back. So when I walk through this park that I assume you're going to vote in favor of, I'll be looking closely at the Vietnam era area. And let it be a belated vote from me, a tribute to my classmates that didn't come back or those that are still with us and struggle from day to day. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Wilkie. Supervisor Buchanan.
Thank you. Supervisor Wilkie made some very eloquent comments, kind of hard to follow. There's been some of the concerns about this park, and I think are valid to acknowledge before we move forward, and that main concern about how could we use this money differently. And I think it's a fair question to ask. And I think every time we spend money, we should ask, is this the most optimal use of that funding? Is this the right way to spend it? And I think Supervisor Bates hit the nail right on the head when she talked about objections to spending money on quality of life projects based on the argument that they could have been better spent elsewhere. And Phoenix Park is a great example of that. When that park was first being built, why are we wasting money on a parkland when there are so many other people who are struggling and we could directly help them with services? And I think few people would stand here today and say that that was a net negative. Or if you set aside the totality of the park and just look at the rocks, those weren't cheap rocks. We could have still had a beautiful park, but we could have gotten rid of the rocks. Maybe we could have helped people over there. And then we devolve into what is the lowest level of quality infrastructure that we can build in order to use money elsewhere. And I think that that's a very unfortunate, negative, slippery slope. The city of Eau Claire has a really interesting policy for homeowners and for other people who, if you want to plant a tree in a boulevard, that they will reimburse you for that program. Now, why am I mentioning that in terms of this? Because that's money that could have been spent elsewhere, and you can quantify exactly how much money we're spending on that and exactly who you could have helped and exactly how, and you can't quantify the quality of life improvement that being a Tree City USA has brought in, even though hospitals will tell you patients heal faster because we have more trees. And what I'm getting at is we will never be Mississippi or Alabama, and nor should we be in terms of spending little and having the lowest tax rate possible, having the lowest spending rate possible in order to compete in the global economy. When we look at places like Jamf, when we look at Drylock, when we look at the development that's happening in our community, we've done it because we have banked on quality of place. We as a community have said we are putting our bet on infrastructure and creating quality of places for people to be. And then that's what's going to drive us into the future. And when I look at this particular project in this particular area, an impoverished neighborhood, Eau Claire has the second highest amount of bike trails in the state of Wisconsin. I believe that's, I remember reading a year or so ago. And this isn't just a monument or a memorial, that it is a trail. And we are expanding on and we are investing in that strength that we have. So a lot of people have talked about the veteran aspect because it is a veteran park, and I didn't want to double up on that part of the conversation, but I wanted to add into that Eau Claire is a community where we're investing in quality of place. And that's what we're doing to attract and retain people and attract our quality of life. So that's why, while I respect the argument, we could have spent this money elsewhere. It's easy to say that about everything we do. And we need to understand and also think about the thing that's hard to quantify that gives us the unique character of who we are. And I think that this project adds to that and adds to what we're trying to do. So I will be voting in favor.
Thank you, Supervisor Buchanan. Excuse me. Supervisor Schraufnagel. Excuse me. Can you all hear her? It's on.
Is your amber light on? No. Can you turn it on? I just punched it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
There we go.
Supervisor Beckfield mentioned the fact that we've been working together. I believe it's been about 2.5 years when Mark walked up to me at Menards and said, "Do you know anything about a trail in your neighborhood?" And we started talking, and a little more history. About 14 years ago, before I was involved in the county board, I was on the board of directors for Downtown Eau Claire, Inc., and I was one of the first members of the initial formation after Hyatt Palma recommended that we celebrate all the components of downtown that make up our downtown. And I have been really happy to see the development of downtown and how Phoenix Park has grown, how businesses have come in, how buildings have come in, apartments, et cetera. And that is on the other side of Madison Street. Phoenix Park is beautiful. And on the other side of Madison Street is the Veterans Trail. And I'm sorry, I'm very stumbly here. We have the North Riverfront's green space that has been identified as a future trail to link the Phoenix Park bike trail and walking trail with the High Bridge bike trail and walking trail. And the veterans component is helping the city make these pieces come together and lessen the expense across the board for citizens in Eau Claire. 2.5 years ago, Mark told me about the dream, and in the last year and a half, the North Riverfront's Neighborhood Association has had at least 3 meetings dedicated to talking about the Veterans Trail and how it's going to complete that linkage and how it will be a tourist attraction in the future. On December 12th, that's a Wednesday, we are having a neighborhood association meeting at Eclekia, the little church that used to be B-side on the corner of Farwell and Madison Street. And we're going to again be talking about the updates to the Veterans Trail project. And everybody in this room is invited. If you'd like to attend, it'll be at 7 o'clock. And you'll learn a little bit more. If you step out in the lobby now, you can take a visual look at the columns that are setting out, that are showing some depictions of what the trail will look like, as well as some of the stones you can purchase to celebrate your family in the veterans space. So for folks who have said they hadn't heard anything about it, it's been talked about with the city of Eau Claire. It's been talked about with Eau Claire County. It's been a dream for the veterans for more than 4 years. They were looking at different locations throughout the community on how it would be the best presented, and the green space is the perfect place for it to be located. So I hope you'll cross the Madison Street Bridge, take a look at the electrical distribution center, and walk toward the Forest Street shops, and you'll learn and see some of the components of what this Veterans Trail and the city of Eau Claire are bringing forward. So I hope we support the investment, and I know that it's going to be a continuation of the investment we have with Phoenix Park, and I'm hoping that it is going to be the step it takes to get into the North Riverfronts from downtown, and people will start making more investments in our neighborhood moving forward and revitalize the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Schaffnagel. Supervisor Neiman.
It's good to honor the courage of the men and women who have given their youth, their energy, their well-being, and their lives, putting themselves in harm's way to uphold the values of liberty and justice for all. It is good to educate our children in ways of being good citizens, to likewise uphold these values and to work for the common good. I often see on the corners of Eau Claire homeless men displaying signs saying that they are veterans. According to the National Coalition for the Homeless, 40% of homeless men are veterans. 4% of homeless are women. 76% of these suffer from mental illness, including post-traumatic stress disorder, alcohol, and drug problems. It seems to me that more honor would be given to those who have served our country so valiantly by providing for those still living who have been so wounded. I would rather see these county funds going towards such services. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Neiman. Supervisor DeLuca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have actually experienced something similar to this with my father in central Illinois. His city and county created a memorial for all the fallen vets and those who served in his area. And our family actually went down and saw the induction ceremony of it. And so I understand that it's going to be a positive thing for the area. I did try to check into the budget documents to see where it was located, and I missed it. So I was trying to figure out if it was already in the budget, not in the budget. Can you tell me in the capital projects, what is it listed under?
Page 214, it's the very last line.
All right, thank you. And then I also would like Corp Counsel to review in our fact sheet. It said that they would review conditions required to release the funds for this project. Would that be possible this evening?
Push it on again.
Testing. No, that is not possible this evening. That's a contingency for releasing the funds down the road.
Okay.
So you're committing to the funding tonight if you pass the resolution, but those contingencies are not all currently met. And basically, then what the Veterans Foundation will have to do is provide information to us that will, in fact, meet those contingencies. They will be reviewed, and no money would be released until those contingencies are met. There's no way we could do it tonight.
Okay, so.
Because one of the contingencies is based on how much money they have to raise before the money is released, and there's some permitting with the city, et cetera, and my understanding is that at least at this time, that's not all done because of the status of the project.
Okay. And are some of those contingencies at the bottom part of the resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
Those are the contingencies that are included in the resolution. So if you adopt the resolution, you will be adopting those contingencies, and then the process will be that those contingencies will have to be met before they're released. Just for the board's information, this resolution is partially modeled on what happened with the Confluence project. There were a number of contingencies that had to be met for that project before the money could be released. And so that County Administrator Schaaf had indicated that that was a good model, and we should use that in drafting this. So we did, and none of the money will be released until those contingencies are met. Exactly what the timing of that is, I'm not sure.
So there aren't any other contingencies but what's listed in the resolution, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor DeLuca. Supervisor Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish to speak in favor of this resolution. As a daughter of a former Marine recruiter in the 60s during the Vietnam War, a lot of this really touched home with my family, and we're very supportive of this living history aspect of that. And I think it's so exciting that we wish to pay tribute to the veterans and their families who have given so much on behalf of our country. As a history major in college, I know for years I saw the Freedom Shrine on the second floor of Schofield, and when they remodeled that, it's kind of a testament that education styles and things change. But this monument and this living history, from the sounds of it with the different stages, will provide a placeholder so that our citizens and our future generations will know that we value the lessons that our veterans and their families have given. It will also serve as a reminder that if we don't remember history, we are doomed to repeat it. And a lot of us would very much not like to see Vietnam and other things like that again. So I am very delighted that this project is coming forward. I'm a very strong supporter and hope that you will support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Leary. Supervisor Jansen.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a minute to, again, thank all of the veterans that are here in the room today. I wish I could have shaken all of your hands when I walked in, but I had to put my head down and move to my seat because I was overwhelmed with emotion seeing everybody here, and I had tears in my eyes. So thank you for your service and for being here. One of the comments that has been made is that we should be doing more to serve those veterans who are living, and I absolutely agree. You know, Adam Coles and everybody who works on the other side of this wall, they do amazing work, and I wish I could give more resources to them to do that. But I also see this memorial as a way of serving those that are living. It's a place for them to go and to reflect and to honor those brothers that they have lost. And it's a place for families who have lost loved ones to go and to honor them. And so I very much encourage everybody to support this because I do feel that this is a great way that we can serve our living veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Jansen. Supervisor McKinney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it on? I currently have a grandson serving in the Navy in Bahrain. My son served 25 years with 2 tours to Afghanistan. I had a son-in-law who did 25 years in the Navy. You know, it's my hope that people could see this project as honoring veterans, but I know that there's those who see it as honoring war. And while I can support the project, I really wish in my lifetime I would see a project that would be honoring peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Bourbois.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just had 2 clarifying questions. One was the environmental impact if it's along the river. I didn't know if somebody was able to answer that. And then the other one, I looked at the map. I just didn't really see the forestry gardens on there, and so I was wondering if somebody could kind of clarify where that is along the map too.
Supervisor Beckfield.
I would like to recognize. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I would like to recognize Jeff Pippinger from the City of Eau Claire Parks for those 2 questions. I think he'd be more equipped to answer it than me.
Okay, without objection, please come forward. Thank you.
Good evening, Jeff Pippinger, Community Services Director for the City of Eau Claire. First answer to your question, we had to get approval by FEMA to put the tribute trail through along with some of the amenities, and that's been approved already. And in regards to where the gardens are, they would be directly to the west of where the trail is, and we'd be pretty much incorporating them in. They won't be part of it, but they'll be right next to the area where the tribute trail is, because we're going to be going down the old River Street, which is a right-of-way. It used to there used to be homes in that area. The city bought those because it was in the floodway. So we're going to be building the trail on that old River Street, and as Supervisor Bates had mentioned, it does link our trails from the High Bridge over to the Phoenix Park. And it's going to be when it's done, it's going to be a great complement to that area.
Thank you, Supervisor Bourbois. I had originally Supervisor Chilson next in sequence. Did you withdraw your request to speak?
I did, but if you're all right, I'll take the opportunity. First of all, I'd like to thank all the veterans that are in attendance tonight. I'd like to thank you for your service, and I'd like to thank you for coming out to the meeting and showing your support for this project. I have not been on the Finance and Budget Committee previously, so this is my first year in doing so. And what that means is that you get to go through a complement of meetings. I don't even know how many there were, probably 10, I don't even know. in a series of 2 weeks, and I think it totaled somewhere around 36 hours worth of meetings. So we heard from all the departments, we heard from community agencies, we've heard from outside organizations, and everybody told us about what they do, gave us their pitch for their budget, and as a committee, we listened and we analyzed, and at the end, we put forth a recommendation. And what I'm proud of is that we were able to come together and put forth a proposal that includes this project, because I think this project is very important. I think this project is long overdue, and I think it is a time for Eau Claire County to recognize the veterans, to recognize their service, and to say thank you to them for what they've done for us and what it has allowed us to do. And one of the comments tonight was in relation to the money and how it could be used or who could be served by it. I'm struck tonight when I look around the room that this meeting is full. A lot of times we come here and there's maybe a few people, couple, someone might speak during the public comment period. We have a full room tonight. I pulled into the parking lot, it's full. So I'm impressed by that. And you know what? That tells me that this project and this use of funds is serving someone. It's serving our veterans. It's serving those that are here. It's serving those that are not here, and it's serving the families of those people in many different ways. So I'm proud to support it. I was proud to support it with the Finance and Budget Committee, and I hope everybody else does the same, and Eau Claire County brings this forward tonight.
Thank you. Supervisor Stelzis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two categories. First, some comments on the project, and then secondly, more related to finance, and I think there will be some questions. I talked to a lot of people about this project and tried to make an earnest effort to ask veterans how they felt about it, and posed the question to them: if we were going to spend this money, would you rather see it on a, spent on a tribute or in more direct services? And without exception, the comment that I got from veterans, ranging, by the way, from age 92 to 25, said that they would rather see the money spent on direct services, helping veterans and veteran families. And I take those comments very seriously, and I think that we need to acknowledge that those concerns exist. Now, we've heard a lot of other points made this evening, and I think they're all really good points about the benefits of having this particular area, the development, the fact that it does provide some benefit to veterans that perhaps we don't see directly. I think I did hear assurances, but I'd like to hear it maybe a little bit more directly, that we have completely funded without reduction anything to our veteran services provided by the county, to any mental health that we provide to veterans, and any third-party agencies who provide services to veterans that we also make contributions to. So I'd like to make sure that we're not shorting them. And then I think that I could answer with confidence to those people who told me they'd rather see the money spent elsewhere, that we actually have fully funded those programs. So I'd like to see if someone could speak to that, and then I would like to return to my questions about how we finance this.
I'll ask Supervisor Pagonis to address your question.
So your question is basically programs that support the veterans. Veterans Department continues to be fully funded, but I will point out that they have an interim director, so they're actually a person short, but it has nothing to do with our budgeting. So there are 3 people in Veteran Services, and I believe that right now they're operating with just the 2. With regard to mental health, those are programs. Some of them, if there's a disability that's identified, it's through the ADRC, and others would be through CCS, through Human Services. CCS is funded by the state. It's Medicaid, Medicare dollars, and there's been a significant ramp up in hiring for adult mental health workers. So when you see additional staff being hired in human services for CCS, it's specifically for adult mental health, although there's some children mental health, but primarily adult mental health. Your third question was community agencies. We have not decreased funding in any community agency that has, how do I phrase this, that works with individuals, either individuals who are homeless, individuals who have any specific needs. Restorative justice, which is primarily for juveniles, we reduced funding, but it's being made up through a grant in human services that they have. That doesn't specifically work with veterans, but that's just one community agency. The only other community agency that saw a decrease is an economic one, that there are more things about that we can talk about next week. So there's not one program that I can think of that deals either with individuals who are homeless, individuals who are in shelters, or any of the programs that deal with individuals with mental health, or the Veterans Program that have seen any decrease in funding, will see any decrease in funding for 2019. And, well, I guess that's off topic. I was going to say something about ADRC because we did restore an individual in ADRC that the state chose, a prevention program. The state chose to defund it, but we found the funding for it. So I cannot think of, the answer to your question is nothing. No one's been defunded for veterans.
Okay.
Supervisor Stoltes, are your other questions related to finance?
Yeah, that answers the first question. I do have a follow-up.
I will leave Supervisor
But
Pagonis'
maybe
microphone.
back to Supervisor Pagonis again.
Right.
Okay, so there's a couple parts to this. First of all, how was the $450,000 determined? Just seemed like a reasonable amount, or is it some sort of pro rata share? I'd like to understand the logic behind that.
Oh, that's Supervisor Beckfield.
Okay, well, let me ask these, and then they can answer them in series, if I may. Secondly, have we considered anything that the county can do to do contributions in kind? I'm thinking the highway department has lots of equipment and so on, so has any of that been considered? And then thirdly, I'm not a big fan of bonding. I understand that if we've already committed all the other levy funds to other things this year that we have to bond for it. But could we, in 2020, consider to pay the second portion of this out of levy funds? I'd rather us pay for this capital donation in levy funds rather than bonding. So
I'll ask Supervisor Beckfield to respond to what I think are your first two questions, and Supervisor Pagonis to respond to the financial.
Thank you.
Supervisor Beckfield.
Great question. This project's been going on for close to 4 years, and the initial cost of the mall was $450,000, estimated by Lean & Peterson architect that works with the city of Eau Claire. The latest one, which I have here, unfortunately, like I said, when you build a house, costs go up and things are found, show the current expense for the mall area at $638,900. And instead of changing the dollar amount up, the foundation decided to leave it alone and do some additional work to raise other funds to cover it, if that makes sense. So it wasn't a number just pulled out of the air. It was a number that was initially set for that portion of the trail, and the sponsorship would have been the cost that we were building for the city.
So basically you were hoping that the county would pay for the entire mall area? Was that the rationale?
Initially, that was one of the suggestions that came out of a number of meetings with the city. Okay, because it's the Eau Claire County Veterans Mall. Okay, and I know that sounds kind of simplistic, but 3 years ago that was the number we initially had. And the one that I was just given here in the last 2 weeks with the meeting with the architects that are working with the city are substantially higher. And, okay, does that make sense? Because actually the economy has improved a lot. And one of those problems we have with the economy is building costs are going up. And that's what's happened to us in this point.
But the overall project is something in the order of 2 million, correct?
2.2 million.
2.2 million.
Correct.
But you can isolate this mall section, or at least at some point in time, the cost for that can be sort of isolated?
They're all isolated by the trail, by the lights, everything is down to the wiring, it's incredible the amount of stuff that we have that we've been working with. So I can supply that to you.
Now, I just wondered how we came up with that number. Okay, so what about the in-kind part? Could we do anything that way?
That's an interesting comment that came up at one of our meetings with, in regards to like building the trail. We have items, we're going to look into those, but believe it or not, there's other in-kind donors that are coming in first, that have already, how do I say this, expressed interest. One of the things we do real well is build blacktop, paving roads. But currently, the paths that they're building in the city of Eau Claire are all made of concrete. So there's a lot of discussion on what those things are going to be. And so as soon as we get to this first phase and we get that all in place, I think we can look at those, because we actually discussed that with John Johnson at one of our meetings. So yes, we're looking at all the avenues that we can to save money and reduce the cost, or in kind with the county as well. But great question.
In the interest of time, we're going to make this pretty brief. I think your third question was in regard to finances. I'll ask Supervisor Pagonis to respond.
So we have no ability to increase our levy except for the increase in equalized value, percentage of increase in equalized value due to net new construction. We had a really good year in net new construction, and our levy's going up $223,000. So if we were going to use tax levy dollars, it would then consume all of our ability to increase our tax levy, which means if insurance rates change, then we would have a problem. If anyone wanted to change a position, if they wanted to, if we needed to hire more law enforcement officers or correctional officers, we would not have any additional levy dollars to do that with.
But we're going to have to pay the bonds back off with levy dollars.
Right, but we levy differently for capital than we do for property taxes.
Thank you.
We levy separately.
Thank you, Supervisor Pagonis. Supervisor Knight.
Can you hear me okay? I guess we're hearing from everyone. Well, I guess I've been living in the cave the last 4 years because this is all pretty new to me. And I came in very skeptical. I'm still a little skeptical about borrowing, as we were just talking about, for this project. A few months ago, we had a very kind of hot meeting over the wheel tax, and the majority of us kind of held our noses, even though it was not a perfect tax, and voted anyways in favor of it. And one of our concerns was that we're borrowing too much. We're going to lose our good bonding rate. And here we are with a discretionary program, and we're borrowing again. So yeah, that does kind of concern me. A lot of my concerns have been assuaged just by listening to all my fellow supervisors who are very persuasive. I do have concerns that maybe we're not doing the best thing by the veterans, the flesh and blood veterans who are still living, putting up statues for the veterans who have already gone before us. I do have family members who are veterans. I have done the bike ride fundraiser for the High Ground, but which is entirely, by the way, funded through donations. And is quite impressive. I still wonder if we aren't paying too much money for this project now with our other concerns in the budget, but I think I'm leaning towards voting for it. One question for Mr. Peppinger, is it, from the city? It seems like it was always kind of on the books to have a multiple-use trail connecting the High Bridge with the Phoenix Park area. I'm wondering, could the city maybe get a stewardship grant and do that and save this veterans group some money? Because it seems once you lay down a concrete trail there, you're going to have people walking, power walking at noon, you're going to have multiple uses, rollerbladers and bicycles. So I'm wondering if it's fair for this veterans group to bear that cost.
We're doing that already. I've got a business analyst within my department, and we're looking for opportunities for grants. We've been successful in the last year of getting over $6 million in grants, so it's something that we're looking at.
But you would still need the $2.2 million for this project, or would that knock off some of the costs of the project?
It would potentially knock off or help support some of that 2.2 million. Again, it depends upon, you submit and you apply for it. It doesn't mean that you'll get them. Even though we get that much, we've gotten that much this past couple of years, there's no guarantee that we'll get it. So, but we are applying. We're working with Mark and the rest of the veterans group to apply for some of those grants.
I did go in this afternoon and looked at the video of the project, and I'm wondering, well, you go from Phoenix Park with the natural landscaping and a lot of curved lines and views of the river, and then this project seems it's very straight on a very straight road with the flowering trees. I guess I've been to the mall and seen the cherry blossoms, very nice in the spring. But is that compatible with other landscaping the city has going down there?
Yes, I believe when we're done with it, there'll be some bump outs there. There'll be other amenities within that trail that will, again, we don't want to copy Phoenix Park, but we want to complement it. And I think when the plan is done and construction is completed, it will do exactly that.
Thank you. Supervisor Dunning. Thank you, Mr. Michaels. Yes?
Hear you. I'm going to be voting in favor of this project because I think it is a needed project. To the views or the ideas that we have been pulling have been fairly well answered as far as we're taking money from doing the existing problems areas with veterans. And if people really want to help out with the existing problem methods, maybe there's a way that you can approach your legislator to help them understand what the levy limits have done to our budgets and how that the relief of the levy limits or a changing of them would allow us to take more active measures as far as helping the veterans with the issues that they have, whether it's a program that the state starts and sends down to the increases to the counties, or whether they list our limits. We are locked in, as Supervisor Pagonis has indicated. We cannot use that money without subtracting from another live program. And so maybe contacting your legislators would be a good way to start moving some of this forward so we can help the veterans that are suffering from homelessness and mental and physical problems.
Thank you, Supervisor Dunning. Supervisor Russell. Well, your microphone is on, I think. Push the button there.
Is the amber light on?
Let us try it here. Now? No.
Is your amber light on the base of your, It's amber? It's amber. Okay.
There you go.
I'm activated. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question about use of the park, and this might be directed either Supervisor Beckfield or Mr. Peppinger. Is it like another city park where groups would need a permit to have an event there? Or is it not really going to be a city park? Could it be used, for example, by a group who might want to have a peace vigil? would that require a permit? Or a group that might want to have some sort of event as a fundraiser to raise money for homeless vets, can it be used for things other than military services, or will it be limited to that?
I'm going to ask Supervisor Beckfield to respond.
I'd like to refer the question to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I was short-circuiting that.
That's all right.
That's fine. Please.
So the answer to your question is that we do have a special events process that we go through. Depends upon the number of people. So there's a criteria that we establish that it may or may not be a special event. In this area, because it is a dedication Veterans Tribute Trail, we would likely be a little bit cautious on what we would allow in there as far as different events. We certainly don't want anything that would degrade the park. It's still going to be a park. It's part of the 4th Street Green area, so it's still going to be a park. Still going to have community gardens established on it, but any event that would go through would likely go through our special event process.
So there's a form and a committee or a person that approves that then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Russell. Supervisor Coffey.
Do I push? No, it's on. I think honoring the vets is very, very important, and I, as many have said, I'm very, very happy at all the vets who have come tonight. A lot of work has been gone into this, and Supervisor Knight, like me, I think we're in the same cave, Joe, because I really did not know much about this, and I've learned a lot tonight, so thank you for that. I did do quite a bit of research in the last couple of days to find out what's going on with vets who are living in our community, and found out that we have 7,000 to 8,000 vets living in Eau Claire County. And through talking to people in Western Dairyland and also the mental health homeless program in Chippewa Falls, it seems to me that we have lots of vets who still need lots of help. I realize that funding has not decreased, but I do think it needs to be increased to help them. And we have 36 who are in shelters this year, and I was also told by Casey in the Chippewa Falls program, most of their vets come from Eau Claire County, and that in a screening, 2 to 3 vets per week are couch searching and not having a place to be. I like Supervisor Neiman, I'm very concerned that we need to help those that are living so that they can have what their needs are. I, like Supervisor Stelgis, spoke to many vets and people in my community, just residents who did not happen to be vets, and all of them wanted services to go to people in need, and felt that a bigger proportion of the fund should come up from private donations. My father-in-law died. I would be very, very willing, he was a World War II vet, to give a memorial to him and plan to do so. And I just feel like the amount of money we're asking from the county is a lot. One young Marine that I spoke to said that she's working as a nurse and was working tonight and could not come and speak, but she said that as a native Eau Claire person, she felt like the memorials in Holly and Neilsville and near Barron were enough for her. She said that, I hate to say this because I think people might think that I'm un-American or unpatriotic. This is a Marine speaking. I work as a nurse at an Eau Claire hospital, and we need a lot of mental health services for veterans. And I think there are better ways that we can use our resources, was what she said to me. So I just cannot support this with the amount of money that is being requested.
Supervisor Henning.
I would like to comment on a few things here.
when I'm talking about in-kind, our highway department, John and I, our commissioner, and I'm the chairman of the committee, we met with Mr. Supervisor Beckfield, and we went in through some things that the highway department can do with our purchasing power that we have for different items and equipment that we have that would be used in kind on this project. So that's always already been talked about, but I'm glad somebody brought it up. There's one thing that, because of Mr. Beckfield's everything he talked about, one thing that was missed was this trail has information on 11 wars, starting with the Civil War, going to the Afghanistan. And so there's information along this whole trail that people can obtain as they walk down this trail, and when they get to the end, they can take a test on it. So it's very educational for the younger people because they can do it with their phones. So that's one thing. And I, too, want to thank my fellow veterans that are here, and I'm proud of the respect that's shown to them tonight. So I think that's all that I'm going to support it.
Thank you, Supervisor Henning. Supervisor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, we've talked a lot about the needs for vets, and of course, we recognize those needs as well. It's part of the reason why when we looked at the mental health needs in general, that we realized that we really needed to do something. So in this budget for the county, you will also see significant funding to meet mental health needs. And that will be indeed for individuals that can come in from the community. But let's look what else happens in that office. If you really want to know how we support vets the most, the monies that are supporting that office are all county dollars. There are no federal dollars there. There are no state dollars there. And what does that office actually do? It brings in hundreds of thousands, really, I think Attica would probably give it a more complete figure, millions of dollars in vets' benefits. That's the object of it. Yes, we have about 8% of our population here who are veterans. And a lot of them have access to the benefits to support themselves and their families through that. Some of our homeless vets are individuals who really don't want to go to the clinic up at Chippewa. They don't want to go to the Veterans Hospital up in Minneapolis. They have issues that really, they haven't gotten beyond the point where they can seek that kind of help yet. And yes, we hope that obviously they'll take advantage of even coming into the clinic that we hope to open here. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This isn't an ongoing expense for the county. And it just seems as though the support is here to be able to do this one-time thing. So I would urge that we know that we're doing what we can for the vets who come to us for help, and obviously support that office. But also, I think this is the right thing to do for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bates. Supervisor Anderson.
Yes, just one short question. Were there going to be plans for any permanent figurative sculpture or statues?
Supervisor Beckfield.
Excuse me. Yes, there will be bronzes of period soldiers along the way. It will be of the people that served in their wear. That doesn't mean there won't be a Civil War musket in one of their hands or something like that. But yes, the answer to the question is there will be artwork which is planned to go along the time trail from the Civil War going forward.
Yeah.
Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Supervisor Maury.
Yes, I'm a veteran and I'm supporting this project. I just have a question, maybe it's a point of order. Normally, when we have ordinances and or resolutions, we have a first and second reading, and I didn't see a first reading on it. I know it's been in process for 4 years. It's a donation. Maybe it doesn't fit but in terms of, it seems like some supervisors have not had a long opportunity to consider this, and maybe the public as well, unless you happen to have been part of the community that was pushing for this. Are we not following our rules and our process and our procedures for this particular donation?
We always try to follow our rules. I'll ask our Corp Counsel to respond.
Now, under the County Board rules, this is a resolution and does not need a first and second reading, so it's properly before the board to take action on tonight.
Supervisor Lavelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think everybody's got their questions answered because everybody asked a lot of them. So, and I think most people got their minds made up. So could we bring this to an end and vote on this?
That's a request to call the question. We have only one.
That's my request to call.
I only have one more person indicating wish to speak, and we will try to do that quickly, won't we, Supervisor Buchanan?
Thank you. And I will be very brief. I just wanted to make 2 follow-up points based on some of the conversations we've heard. First is it's very important to keep in mind the difference in budgets, and we're not on the budget now, but we will be soon. They keep in mind the difference between operating dollars and capital dollars. We physically cannot use capital dollars to do operating projects, because if we did, we would tell people, here is a new program, here is a new policy we are creating, come apply, come get help. Then next year when that money doesn't exist, it ceases to exist. And there's a very specific funding mechanism for how we levy for capital dollars that's different from operating dollars. That's different. So we can't use capital dollars for operating projects. And I say that because if you vote no, which you absolutely have the right, that will, one, not automatically mean money gets put into operating services. So the question of, if we vote this down, will that mean that there is more money for direct services? One, that won't happen automatically. And 2, it can't happen because it's capital dollars. So I would just want to remind people of that point. And also, you are a county board supervisor, so when we are to the budget process, if you do have an amendment that you would like to make to take this money away and then propose an alternative capital one-time project that's different than this, I would invite you to do that. But again, remember, capital versus operating, program versus projects and infrastructure. And then the very, very last thing I wanted to point out was that this isn't just a memorial, and it's very important to remember the focus on this in the Veterans Trail, but it is a trail that connects 2 pre-existing non-connected trails together that we as a community were going to connect anyway. But we're investing $450,000 to do a $2 million development. That means if you're concerned about fiscal responsibility, setting aside everything else, we're saving the public money because we're getting private dollars in to building a trail connection that we were going to build anyway. We, meaning Eau Claire, probably more the city than the county, but it's all public dollars. It's all your taxes, whether it's the city or county are doing it. So there's money being saved because we're getting a $2 million investment that needed to happen anyway to connect trails, and we're getting it for the bargain basement price of $450,000. So those are my 2 points, capital versus operating, and remember the savings because we have to connect these trails anyway, or at least we should, because I believe in quality of place. Thank you.
Thank you. In the effort to call the question, I will ask Supervisor Kronk to make her comments brief.
Very brief. Super brief. I just also want to say thank you to all the veterans that are here tonight. And I will be supporting this resolution. And I heard the comments about the amount of money being spent. I also heard, that we need to pay tribute to the veterans, or that we need to support the veterans that are living with services. And I do see a room full of living veterans who are telling us what they need. and what they would like. I also kind of wrote down some things about, there's been a lot of stories shared, and I think that's what happens when a memorial happens or a monument or a space where people can reflect and think about, the service, think about people that are no longer here, and also, again, as some of the other supervisors said, I don't think it's necessarily paying homage to war. I think it's looking at what we as a society have chosen to engage in, and also to educate our youth in generations to come that what decisions do they want to make, but they have to have their history understood, and that doesn't always happen in the classroom. So I think this is a really beautiful way to create a space that brings people in nature. It brings people in an interactive way to engage, and it allows people, like we've done tonight, to share stories. This has been a really interactive night, so I will be supporting this. I also think it's a way to, when I was watching the video that Supervisor Lavelle presented, I saw some of the diversity in acknowledging the Native Americans and indigenous populations that have also served, and the African Americans that have served. And I hope this is a space where those stories can also be told. So I will be supporting. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Kronk. I see no other lights lit here. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on File 79, authorizing a donation of $450,000 to the Eau Claire Veterans Foundation. That is 25 yes, 4 no. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Next item on our agenda is File 75.
To reapply for a Class B intoxicating liquor license for the use in the restaurant and lounge, Chippewa Valley Regional Airport, under Section WIS Stats 125.51, 5B2.
Who's speaking? Who's airport? Excuse me, which supervisor? I'm sorry, Supervisor Moritz.
It's blinking, is it on now?
You're on.
Okay, so this is for our intoxicating liquor license. To my knowledge, the Hangar 54 has had no problems, and it has been approved, and I would strongly recommend that you vote in favor of this to continue their liquor license.
I'm going to ask our visitors please to leave quietly so we can conduct our business. Thank you. All right. Are you done?
Yes, I'm done. So I'd ask that you approve this license.
Supervisor Pagonis, you're on.
For what?
I don't know, your light was on.
Oh,
I was counting on the fact that you would know.
sorry, it was
sorry.
a mistake.
Okay. I see no other lights lit. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file number 75. Supervisor.
Yes, there wasn't a motion.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
That's an empty vote. Never mind. Oh, never mind. We didn't do it as a motion. Sorry. So Supervisor Moritz, would you make the motion?
Do I need to make a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion to be approved.
Okay. And we have a second from Supervisor Jansen. Sorry, my fault.
I haven't passed.
Right.
Oh, the last person was.
Okay.
Does anyone want their vote changed? Because you vote, okay, is that okay?
That's okay with me.
As long as everyone wanted tonight. Okay, thank you.
I'm happy. Okay. So that's 29 to nothing. The motion passes. The next item on our agenda is file 76.
Requesting increased funding. requesting increased funding and oversight reforms for Wisconsin Child Protective Services System.
Motion? Supervisor Boerboom, second by Supervisor Chilson. Supervisor Bates, do you speak to this? That's okay, join the club.
Sorry about that. This particular request comes because it's a major priority.
Am I not on?
Yeah, sorry, you're on.
Sorry. This particular request for support from this body comes as a result of an effort throughout the state to be able to increase our funding for the Wisconsin Child Protection Services System. You've had in your packet and certainly have been aware of over the last number of months the issue that we have as far as staffing is concerned, number of people coming into the system, and the inadequate funding to really supply the kinds of services that we need to give. So it's really saying these are state programs, and rather than just mandating them to us without adequate funding, please consider in your budget process funding appropriately for this area.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this file? I see no other lights lit. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 76. Supervisor Henning, Supervisor Knight. Thank you. That is 29 yes, 0 no. It passes. Thank you very much. I'm going to keep going on and then go to the, all right. The next item is file number 88.
Authorizing payment of vouchers over $10,000 issued during the month of October 2018.
Motion. Motion by Supervisor Anderson, second by Supervisor Miller. Is there any discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Supervisor Stelchis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we have this chronic problem of approving things after they've already been paid, and I would like to know if we're making any progress to correct that. But I'm also wondering if at the same time we could get some sort of monthly summary regarding our revenue. I mean, we're talking about our big spending, but for example, so much of these expenditures are transfers. I'd like to see the revenue side coming in at the same time. Is that possible?
I'll ask our county administrator to respond.
The Finance and Budget Committee has been working with our finance director to develop a quarterly report to the board that will include information on revenues as well as expenditures. And so I anticipate that they will have something prepared and ready for the board's consumption in the very near future. So that would be an answer to your request. From the perspective of trying to pull something together like that on a monthly basis, I guess that could be pursued, but right now they're really looking at that quarterly perspective to track from one quarter to the next what happens with revenues.
Okay, so would there be any opportunity to be able to actually get an advanced look at these vouchers before they're actually dispersed? Or is that just never going to happen?
Well, the reality of it is when we are going through the process of making the payment on these, in many cases, even prior to paying the actual bill, we've already consumed the goods and services. So you can look at them ahead of time. I don't know that that would negate the liability for you in having to pay them.
Well, maybe pre-authorize like a year's worth, I don't know, in advance.
Pre-authorized through the budget.
Yeah.
Thank you. Supervisor Buchanan?
Kind of going off of this ongoing controversy issue, I just want to get a clarification. Is this a a state statute mandated that we have to vote on the expenses after the fact? Because I know that in order to amend a budget, that would require a supermajority vote. And so if we've already passed the budget and it's in the budget, and I'm trying to remember from my orientation from a couple of years ago now, just could we get another clarification on why we're voting after the fact again?
Oh, that's the Corp Counsel to respond.
You just turned yourself off.
You turned it off again. Push the button again.
You turned it off again. Get the amber light on.
There you go, you're right.
Looks amber.
Yellow.
Looks, yeah. So to the first part of the question, there is a statute that requires the board to approve bills over $10,000. The question is, can you do it ahead of time or not? And I think as County Administrator stated, basically you're approving these expenditures when you do the budget, but there's still a statutory requirement. I don't know if there's any county that actually has an ability to review them ahead of time. So that's the practical problem. There's a statute that says we have to do it. It doesn't say before or after, but I think it's impossible to do that before in most cases. And a lot of those bills have to be paid, depending on contracts for services and things, have to be paid within a certain number of days, which would be before the county board ever met. So it's problematic, and I know we've had past discussions with, I believe, Clifton Larson Allen to see if there's a better way to handle it, and so far there hasn't been a good solution. And that's the best I can do.
And I just want to say I appreciate that explanation.
Supervisor Wilkie?
Some may have been noticing that I continue to vote no because I'm being true to what we're supposedly doing tonight, authorizing payment of vouchers of $10,000 issued during the month of October. Authorizing payment is what we're doing, but in fact, in reality, many, if not all of them, have already been paid. That does not make sense, authorizing something prior to. So I've stopped doing it. There's two ways, and I know the finance director is in process and has been for a while trying to get this moved up on his priority list and has a lot of priorities. So I'm trying to be patient, but this does need to be fixed. First of all, I think it is important that this board have some oversight in terms of payment of vouchers. And I trust you that you scan it and you take a look at it. And if something doesn't look right or you don't understand, you ask questions. These are the big dollars. It should be oversight preventive before the fact. In reality, what we're doing is after the fact, and our resolution doesn't state it in that way. Now, there are two possible fixes to this. One, pretty easily change the way it's worded there and say it as we're doing it. We're providing after the fact oversight, or find the language that's comfortable, wordsmith it in such a way that's saying that in fact we are taking a look at what we paid people. Or, which I believe can be accomplished, it's more difficult, but the way I think it should be is that when you arrange your contracts, you set up the time period in such a way that you can get it processed, your bills processed, and this board can function an oversight of payments before they're paid. And you do that in such a way so that you don't get nailed with late payment or anything like that. And I think that can be accomplished. But one of those are the two solutions to this glitch that we have here. But I no longer want to say yes to something that I'm not really doing. I'm not authorizing payment. You already paid it.
Supervisor Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question just as a new supervisor. Have we ever done an analysis of what percentage of these expenditures are to for-profit, private enterprises versus, expenditures to another county, for example. I'm just wondering how much of our expenditures flow back into the community. Is there ever any sense of what that percentage is?
I don't know to whom to address this.
And actually, I think that to your point, you're looking at a couple of potentially different types of analysis because you have for-profit, you have other local governments, and our vendors typically, we cannot limit a vendor simply because they are not located within our area. So that can't be one of our criteria when we're selecting a vendor. And to my knowledge, though, we have not actually ascertained how many are actually local versus, and how do you define that locality? The Chippewa Valley, within the county of Eau Claire itself, or within this region. So, no, we haven't done that actual type of analysis, and oftentimes, it's particularly the frontline services where you're having the service delivery, they would be local simply because of the need to have that service provided locally. So,
Yeah, I was
but
just
we
wondering
haven't
about
actually
economic
analyzed
impact of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Russell. I see no other indications of a wish to speak. Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file number 80. 88, sorry. (25-4), it does pass. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is file number 70.
To repeal and recreate Section 2.05.611 of the Code, ADRC Subcommittee on Older Americans Act programs.
Motion. Motion by Supervisor Miller, second by Supervisor Cronk. Supervisor Miller, will you address this? Thank you. As soon as I turn your microphone on. Sorry.
I'd be happy to. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very briefly, especially again for some of the newer board members, when the county went from Commission on Aging, which had oversight of the aging programs and older American dollars, went from that to ADRC programming. The ADRC then set up a subcommittee to have some oversight on the Older American Act dollars, which would take care of the nutrition program, a few that came in for respite and supportive services. Well, within the last year and a half, the State Aging Network had established that we should have strictly advisory for the nutrition program, which ultimately our local one has pretty much become just for the nutrition program because of our own kitchen setup now. And so basically what we're doing is just getting it into compliance with the state. We'll set up an advisory committee just for the nutrition aspect. We'll be expanding and adding a few committee members to it, but it's just replacing the old subcommittee and bringing in the new one. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer that.
I see no requests to speak. Therefore, supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file number 70. That is 29 yes, none no. The motion passes. The next item on our agenda, we'll go to our addendum. I think you all have, is it a green sheet you have? Yes. File number 86, I believe, has been withdrawn. Is that correct? That is correct. Okay. So our next item is file number 50.
Authorizing the sale of tax deed property to former owners Jeffrey K. Coons and Dana L. Coons for $12,340, directing Corporation Counsel to prepare the quitclaim deed and the county clerk to execute said quitclaim deed.
Motion, Supervisor Chilson, second Supervisor Lavelle. Speaking to this, Supervisor Pagonis.
Sure. I don't really have much to say. This is one of those properties that the property owners had not paid their property tax for several years. The prior owners apparently have come up with all the funds they need, so the county, it just nets out. It includes not only their property taxes, but also some specials and some fines and penalties. So by state statute, we are required to sell back to the property owner if they ask and if they have the funding. So.
Thank you. I see no request to speak. Therefore, please take your keypads in hand and vote on file 50. That is 29 yes, 0 no. Therefore, the motion passes. We are on to our last item under appointments, item number 11. We have already approved the committee, and I, as chair, am appointing the persons who are on the list in the sheet on your desks. I am appointing, therefore, I am looking for approval of my appointment by the board. Motion by Supervisor Leary, second by Supervisor Anderson. Who would speak to this? Planning and Development? Supervisor Gibson? Do you wish to speak to this? Oh, sorry. You're right. Sorry. I caught you off guard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, this is the chair is responsible for appointing the committee. This is the committee that is assigned to the moratorium for the Kafel Farms, and that's who they've Land Conservation has got appointed to or recommended to sit on the committee, and then they wanted myself and I can't remember it. Mark to be the vice chair of the committee. And then once this is approved, our meetings will start soon so that we can get going on this project.
I believe the first meeting of this committee is on the 20th. It's coming soon, and therefore we're trying to move this quickly.
Yeah, I think it's during the week of deer hunting. I don't remember the exact date, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But we are trying to move it forward with all deliberate speed. Any comments, any questions? Supervisors, please take your keypads in hand and vote. You're voting on the appointments to the committee.
Yeah, I got appointed. I didn't really want to be.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Supervisor Chilson? Okay. Thank you. It's unanimous. Before I adjourn, a reminder to you that we have a meeting on November the 20th, and that is our budget meeting. We will have a public hearing before that meeting, and then our budget meeting following it. Okay?
Well, it still starts at 7.
You're there. I'll be out of town.
Sorry?
7 p.m.
Yeah, 7 p.m. Supervisor Beckfield, you had a question.
We should anticipate that we may be here the next day. Is that true?
We always allow that possibility when we're doing budget. It's my hope that if we do very efficiently, we should be able to do it in that night. But we do say that there is the option of that second.
Okay, thank you.
We are adjourned.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and Eau Claire County. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.